we have gathered, right, to talk about the fact that you had a serious problem and you solved it. And with this, you can set an example for others. It's about a problem that people usually feel ashamed of, interestingly, even though it's just as much a part of our body. Our genitals, like any other organ, such as, but for some reason, an unjustified sense of shame is associated with it. And that's why people are reluctant to talk about it if someone has experienced it in their life.
Even erectile dysfunction.
Yes, I can confirm that. And you still took it upon yourself to speak about it in front of the whole country. Why? Because I feel that this is a very important topic, and I think it's somewhat underrepresented in this media noise. And it's a very important topic to talk about because I think it affects a lot of people, and I believe nowadays it affects more and more young people as well. I also got involved in this at a young age. I got into this when I was young. So I think that as a young or older teenager, this whole thing started in my older teenage years. How old were you exactly? I think 14. And how old are you now? Yeah, that's it. And at what age did you solve your problem? 47. So from 47 to 14. Quite a lot. Yes, 33 years. Several decades. Yes. The reason it was like this, I think, is because I didn't feel it was a problem. I couldn't identify it as a problem. How is that possible? I think I didn't even admit it to myself. So this realization, I think, only came as within a relationship in the last 10 years. Did the woman give feedback then? Yes. And in the relationships before that, the women didn't say anything? Yes. The relationship didn't reach the point where this would come to light. To clarify this, or yes. Also, there wasn't such a long connection probably because of this. But he knows this in hindsight. No, he realized it then. No, but I think that obviously in the early stages of relationships, this worked. The sexuality itself. Obviously in parallel. What do you mean by in parallel? Well, porn addiction and a relationship. So being in a relationship as a porn addict, the porn addiction doesn't cease. I think so. In a longer relationship. What posed a serious problem? Since the mentioned relationships weren't that long, I think it didn't come up as much there. Now, you've introduced a new topic, porn addiction, because it is strongly related, in my opinion. Or in my case, it was related, yes. Erectile dysfunction occurs in a relationship. So when I actually indeed engaged in a sexual relationship, it became a problem then. And in my case, I believe the reason for this was significantly due to porn addiction.
It's interesting that you emphasize this, that the awareness of the problem emerged when a relationship was established. Yes, right. So now I'm giving feedback on this. Many men don't realize there's an issue with their erection because they don't establish a relationship with a woman. At home, you satisfy yourself, and there it seems like everything is fine. And then the penny drops for him when he tests himself in a real situation. Yes. Because, of course, the two are not the same at all. And many men lull themselves into the misconception that because their penis works perfectly during masturbation, everything will be fine with a woman too. And sorry, let me finish, because this is a very important message for people, that when he meets a woman and notices that his penis doesn't work with her, even though it worked at home, what does he do? Most men don't blame themselves. What do you think? They blame the woman. Very good. So it doesn't even occur to him that it's because he was constantly masturbating at home. To porn movies. You see, the type of masturbation that doesn't involve porn, I don't consider dangerous. What I consider dangerous is when it's linked with watching porn movies. Obviously, pure masturbation isn't good either if taken to excess. So this is a cliche that I can also spout, that nothing is good if there's too much of it. So moderation is not coincidentally a useful virtue. But fundamentally, masturbation shouldn't be a problem if it's not tied to watching pornography. But since they get used to it, that's how they do it. So they believe that this is completely normal, everyday behavior, and even their friends do it. Nowadays, young people openly talk about it at school, but I think you might know this even better. Okay, so at the beginning of my relationships, I pushed aside masturbation to porn because I knew I had to fulfill this masturbation to porn. However, later I felt that it became dull, and in everyday life, we couldn't always be together like at the beginning of the relationship with that excitement. And then, of course, this thing came up, and I was much more excited to be alone and experience my little sessions.
Well, since this is an open recording, let's not go into details now, but if this were a regular therapy session, I would delve deeply into it. So I would ask specifically what was missing from being with their partner compared to exactly what kind of pornographic films they watched and what sexual activities they were unable to try. By the way, without specifying your particular case, I can certainly provide examples of this. For instance, there are men who would like to ejaculate on a woman's face because they see this in many pornographic films, but they feel it would be degrading for their partner, and therefore they don't bring it up. Now, in 50% of cases, this is completely justified, meaning a woman would indeed be frightened by this. But in 50% of cases, in today's modern times, it's not certain that she would be scared, but she might ask for something in return, something that could be similarly degrading for the man. Of course, but you can't know this in advance. You can never know in advance which category the woman a man is with falls into, because there are often huge surprises in this regard. For example, there are extremely confident women who transform into a kind of shy person in bed, someone who is an individual who cannot assert their own opinions and beliefs, becoming a reserved and withdrawn recluse who cannot be described. And for example, such a woman, whom we wouldn't think of this way in everyday life, such a woman would likely allow a man to slap his penis on her face, just to give an example, but she wouldn't enjoy it. And at the same time, there are women who then get angry and internally blame the man for asking for such a thing. She can't say no. She can't say no. She says, oh, yes, a lot of people can't say no, actually. Oh, yes, of course, go ahead, no problem. And then there will be such an immense anger and resentment within her that it's unbelievable. I had a partner where the issue was that the man had been asking the woman for years to agree to a threesome, which of course means another woman, not another man. And the woman really didn't want this because she is heterosexual. But she wanted to have the man by her side as her husband. In a crude way, she wanted to secure him for herself. And that's why she went along with it. But as a consequence of this, the woman has been blaming the man ever since, by unable to forgive him for not leaving her alone and for making her feel she had to go along with it. Obviously, the man didn't hold a gun to her head, but still. I understand. I understand. Okay. And then there's the other type of woman, I wanted to add this, who in everyday life is very reserved, a wallflower. And you can't hear or see anything from her. So quite the opposite. And in many cases, they are very willing and do a lot of things. And they don't hold any grudges. But you can't know this in advance. And I'm not saying that every woman is like this or every woman is like that. I just gave an example because I've often seen this with men. What too in life? There are those who are extremely confident. And in bed, they are timid, at least according to their own admission. And I believe it about them. Well. So that's how we ended up here. Sorry, what I wanted to say with this is that it's okay that you made that decision then, because you couldn't have known what the woman's reaction would be to you wanting to ask for something. I see. And obviously, I couldn't involve my partners in these matters. Where this came up as a problem, it was a 6-year relationship where it became clear that I was channeling these energies out of the relationship.
That is, I don't have sex with her, but rather I cuddle her. So where this came up, I was able to involve her in it to some extent. In fact, we even watched porn together, but it wasn't like the reason I liked porn, which was the complete focus on me. So that was part of my affection. By sharing this with someone else, it changed. Of course, I wanted to bring her joy too. So this was quite a contradictory feeling within me. Meanwhile, I felt that I couldn't fulfill this. Now I see that obviously this needs to be figured out. Did you get embarrassed? Can we say that then or now? Then absolutely, yes. I was very ashamed of this. I couldn't tell this to anyone. I think I never told this to anyone. Perhaps to friends who also watched porn, or it came up. Or of course, it was funny in the group that I knew all kinds of porn because I liked amateur report porn where the women genuinely seemed to enjoy it. We don't know, no, but they seemingly genuinely enjoyed it. Those were not staged scenes, but rather recorded amateur videos. So I could talk about this, but of course, they laughed at me for knowing these different styles so well, but I dealt with this for 30 years, so I don't know. So that, of course, so yes, indeed. Of course, others did too, but they weren't as refined. They weren't as sophisticated. When you started watching porn at 14, and began to masturbate to it, did you have any kind of collective consciousness or a pang of conscience or anything that, yes. It was about magazines at the time, so porn magazines. So not yet, or on videotapes. There were already then. I found this on videotapes, and yes, I was in my teens. A few. I was baptized at the age of 4. So of my own will, I joined a Christian community, and there, this was considered quite a sinful thing, at least the masturbation in itself. It had such a bad reputation, which I think I overrode on my own terms and didn't care about, but still, it was pressing on me during confession. I had to confess it. It was really embarrassing. Yes, continue. Yes, and yes, it was absolutely something that came with guilt. Yes. What do you think, if you hadn't matured, would you still have felt guilty about this activity?
I don't think so. I think not, because then I wouldn't have this anxiety about the commandment not to commit adultery. So no, I don't know. I think not. Then the majority of people in Hungary are atheists, despite not identifying as such in the census, but true believers are hard to find. There are many who are, so to speak, born into a religion or are baptized or something like that, but it's not serious. And the majority are atheists or believe in some kind of higher power, at most, or a universal organizing principle that doesn't require adherence. So it doesn't matter how one lives, because God will forgive anyway, if they even believe in God at all, but the majority don't. So God will forgive anyway and love them regardless. This is a very fashionable and widespread trend in Hungary, that even if they do believe, they believe in such a concept of God. Of course, this is not the God described in the Bible, and we believers know that Satan also exists, about whom, again, most people are unaware, because Satan's greatest lie is convincing people that he doesn't exist. You have probably heard this saying before, but if not, then perhaps there will be someone among the viewers who hasn't heard it yet. And this is important because it's one thing what a person does, and that God forgives them for anything they do. But there is Satan who does not forget and can always accuse the person before God afterwards. And so he can point at me saying, look, this person did this and that, and therefore cannot be yours, but mine. And then Satan brings people under his control, and people are not even aware of it. Just as they are unaware of the good spiritual world, they're also unaware of the bad spiritual world, even though it has a tremendous impact on our lives, as it did on the ancestors, but generally on the spiritual world, or even the sense of the ancestors. No. But what I wanted to bring out from this is that despite most people being atheists and starting to masturbate to porn, they often still feel guilt. Interesting. And how is that? Yes, because I think that perhaps for me, even later when I set aside this Christian mindset in this regard, it obviously caused conflict within me. Later on, because I was spending too much time on it. So I was somewhat a slave to it, although I didn't admit it. But still. Yes, it's a strange thing, because at the same time, I felt like I was doing something good for myself, since I was taking care of myself, taking care of my desires. This was quite an important tool of self-love for me. And obviously, it stemmed from a lack of love, as I learned in this program. Or they hurt. That the basis of every addiction is a lack of love. Yes, now, you've brought up a new topic. What program are you talking about? The audience doesn't know yet.
Yes, it's Martina's program.
Abbreviated as PoP. It's a potency program for men, which I got involved with a year ago. Thank you. During a radio report where Martina was talking with Puze Robert, I think she expressed certain things quite bluntly and harshly, which really struck me. That report touched me. I felt that I had to deal with this and I needed to sort it out now because it was really troubling. I felt it before as well, but I didn't know this because I had been to a sex therapist, but I couldn't accomplish it. I couldn't be honest. Maybe not even with myself. Him. But in connection with the report, I realized now that this is a serious problem for me. This isn't something new for me, but has been for a very long time. So after the report, I called Martina, and that's how I got to know the program. Do you perhaps remember what part of that report made you confront yourself so much?
Yes.
And what was it? That sexual neglect is really abuse. So this is quite, wow. I think I'm quite a very emotional person, and it confronted me with what I had caused. Yes, that I was able to feel the weight of all this with its articulation or realization. That I was able to feel the weight of all this. This, with its articulation and its detailed realization, provides an in-depth explanation. And yet I didn't even delve into a very harsh, deterrent example that I knew, although I could have mentioned it. But of course, the 1 hour and 11 minutes at Uzer Obertan wasn't enough to explain everything in depth. But apparently, even in this concise and superficial form, this one sentence was able to resonate. I think I remember this very well. This was a very new perspective for me, but one that I could absolutely relate to. Okay, would you like me to perhaps elaborate a bit on how I came to this conclusion? I'm very interested, of course. If it touched you this much, then perhaps the background might be interesting. As you might have gathered from what we discussed earlier, because I think this hasn't come up between us before, I am a believer. So I receive quite a bit of information from God regarding sexuality. He does this with the aim of helping me assist people. But this information doesn't always come in the easiest form, like dreaming it or through the Bible, and then I piece it together. Sometimes I get to know a person's life story, and I have to put the puzzle together myself.
And in relation to this, after quite a complicated and prolonged
series of thoughts, I came to the following story. I had a childhood friend whose parents were devout Christians.
and they completely forbade her from sex, teaching her that she should lose her virginity in marriage to a husband she marries, and to remain faithful to that husband for the rest of her life, no matter what happens. This is a fundamental Christian tenet, that until death do us part. Now, the astonishing thing here is that this happened, that until death do us part, because my friend remained faithful to her husband, even when her husband had already neglected her sexually. My friend who worked in healthcare, which is an exclamation point in itself, got cervical cancer and died from it. And I must add that I tried to help her before. Obviously, even though I wasn't a sexologist, back then I've only been one for 8 years, but I have always been interested in sex, and I always helped anyone I could with their related problems. And I tried to talk some sense into her, like, listen, you shouldn't force this relationship.